Welcome to this tutorial video on feedback and notifications in Google Forms. So one of the things, or some of the things you may like to have, depending on what type of Google Form you're having, is information either directed to you as the person giving the quiz or directed back to the submitter, the person taking the quiz. So we'll look at some options for those. The first of which is email notifications. So if you go to at the top of your quiz or your form, you go to responses, and in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the accepting responses on or off button, which is pretty straightforward. But in the three dots, there are two options here: get email notifications for new responses. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. All that simply means you see in the bottom left-hand corner here that your email responses are on, and you'll see that checkbox. All that means is whoever the owner of the form is. So think about if you're a collaborator on the form, you're not going to get this. Only whoever is the owner of the form, whenever the form is completed and submitted, you'll receive an email notification that that form has been submitted with a sort of summary or a link to the responses. So depending on what you're doing, if this is a form that's filled out a lot, or maybe it's being filled out by 80 kids in your class, you don't want to turn that on because you don't want to get 80 emails. But it may be something that's filled out. Let's say it's a behavior intervention plan, or let's say it's a GEI notification. You may want something like that if you're the owner and sort of director of that committee. Secondly, the select destination for responses. So if I do that, okay, it opens this new spreadsheet or an existing spreadsheet. Now that can also be accessed by this link to sheets button. So when I do that, it can either create a new spreadsheet with those responses, or I can select an existing spreadsheet and I can tell it to deposit those onto an existing spreadsheet. Now, you might think about, why would I want an existing spreadsheet? Let's say this is a form that you want to differentiate from year to year or quarter to quarter, but you want all the responses there. So instead of having multiple spreadsheets, they're on one. So there's lots of options why you might choose that. But we'll go ahead and we'll create the new spreadsheet. And when you do that, it's going to open then in Sheets, automatically with the headers being all of the questions and then the responses. And this goes back to what I mentioned in a previous video about if you're hoping to look at the analytics or the back end of some of your responses. Maybe you want to sort them. Maybe you want to count them. One is the types of questions that you have, and then two is as they come into Google Sheets, what are you going to do with that data? So that's where those link to sheets or those are important. Also, there are add-ons, just like there are in Docs and Slides, for Google Forms. You can do those by using this puzzle piece here. You see that I have several options here. This choice eliminator or choice limiter, that's a very popular one. Again, these are going to be controlled or determined by your district. But the choice limiter or the choice eliminator, you can set limits on the questions when you look at your questions about how many times a response can be selected. So let's say you're doing parent-teacher conferences, or let's say you're signing up for treats or specific slots for something, and you want those slots to disappear after someone has chosen one and filled out the form. That's where you would be interested in an add-on. You can go get those with the three dots and go to Get Add-ons. And that's going to take you to that Google Workspace Marketplace, and it should automatically filter it with forms. Here's, like a form builder. Here's one that's got an equations option for building it, depending on if you're a math person. Whatever it happens to be, that's where you're going to find any sort of a mail merge or a choice eliminator option. Another one, when I mentioned email notifications and the only person that gets those email notifications is the owner, there's actually an add-on called email notifications for Google Forms, where you can open that up and you can actually add additional emails. So let's say, for example, you're on some sort of an intervention committee, or maybe this is a form that goes out for your whole team, whatever it happens to be. Okay, you can actually take that email notifications and you can add additional folks or additional email addresses to it to be able to have those people be notified. I'm not sure. I might need to update that, but it's not being friendly right now. So yeah, it looks like I need to update that to get it to go there. So, but that's one that we've used. So I need to fix that on some of our forms to use that. So the last thing then is, so those are sort of all directed by you. On the back side, when we're looking at responder feedback, if I go to settings, you're probably familiar with some of the response settings, who can fill it out, what their domain has to be, one response, not one response. You scroll down here to presentation, you'll see the confirmation message. The default is your response has been recorded. This is where if you click edit, you can put a custom message. If you want an additional link, maybe they fill out the form and then you want them to go to a specific website, that's where you would include the link. If you want them to some sort of follow-up message about you'll receive an email from me in the next 24 to 48 hours or whatever it is, that's a good place to put that confirmation message. A new feature in the last, I'm going to say year or two, has been this auto save. So it used to be when you were in Google Forms, you could not sort of pause or get out or come back without having to start all over again. So now the default of Google Forms is it does save your responses. So if I start entering responses and something weird happens, my Chromebook falls asleep, I run out of battery, I accidentally close the tab, whatever it is, and I come back, those form responses are auto-saved. So when I go back into that form, it actually remembers all of the things that I had typed in, even if I haven't submitted it. If you don't want that to occur, you can turn off, see this here, if my browser closes or refreshes, I can turn off auto-save. So you might think in your head about why you might want to turn off auto-save. If you have specific time limits for maybe a quiz or a homework or whatever it is you're using this for, you don't want kids to start it, not actually submit it, go leave, come back, whatever it is. But that's an option that is defaulted to autosave, but you can't actually turn off the autosave for your users. So those are just some feedback and notification features of Google Forms.